71% of high school dropouts are from homes without a father. 90% of homeless and runaway children come from a home where the father is absent.
So, running around with them with rehearsals from Brooklyn back to Queens to Long Island.
Wow.
Being present in those moments definitely played a huge role so that I can in a healthy way seek approval.
Now, as he said, the authority figure, the respect for authority is there, but it's not necessarily because of control or manipulation. It's because of how he was trained. We go back to the scripture, train up a child in the way he should grow, and when he's old, he won't depart from it. I have no question in my mind that he would abuse any type of relationship because of how he was raised.
Blessings to everyone, and thank you again for tuning in. Today is a very exciting episode of Change Your Life podcast. I want you to like, comment, and share, and get people really to be a part of this conversation. It's very important. We're going to be discussing some key and critical matters as it relates to fathers, sons, as we're approaching Father's Day, a very pivotal date in the calendar. So I want you to just be a part. Let someone know we're on. Again, I want to say this. Please be a part of our service. We are live in person. You can come online, but we prefer it in person. 10:30 every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. at CLCC. God bless you. I've got two very special guests in the studio, father and son. So Apostle Carl Warp, and we all know Tyler, his son, Tyler Warp. So I'm telling you, this is a dream team here today, and we are going to be discussing some things. Let me give just two scriptures. Proverbs 22:6 says, "Train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." And then it also says in Exodus chapter 20:12, "Honor your father and mother." I want to say this: 5% of youths in prison come from a fatherless home. This is US-based statistics. 71% of high school dropouts are from homes without a father. 90% of homeless and runaway children come from a home where the father is absent. Sons that are involved with their father are 80% less likely to go to jail, and a child that grows up in a fatherless home is 4 times more likely to experience poverty. So we know the critical nature of having fathers in the home, and it's good again to have father and son here today. I'm going to open this up with this question, and I'll direct it to Tyler, but Apostle Carl, you can also jump in. From your perspective as a son, what are some of the expectations that you would expect from a father, from your father?
I would say, based off of how I was risen up, grew up as a child, I would definitely say some expectations are being consistent, showing up. And I definitely would say, the power of maybe words of affirmation, I would say the consistency of that has been important and crucial as to who I've become today.
Wow, that's good. Did you want to touch on that at all?
No, I love it.
Okay, good. How can a father communicate love and approval to their children? How have you found that growing up?
I think it would really come down to the point of going back to consistency. Obviously, I think, a parent's showing up is extremely important. You know, things as little as, coming to the basketball game or, showing up to the recital. Personally, those are things that I've experienced that kind of meant a lot to me. Um, and even more so to the point where I don't know if I'm going a little bit
No, you
deeper
going
on,
good.
but
You're going good.
growing up, my dad was a choir director, even before he was even a preacher.
So
So
that's where you got the
yeah,
worship from.
yeah,
What?
yeah.
Apostle.
So,
Okay.
like, running around with them with rehearsals from Brooklyn back to Queens to Long Island,
Wow.
being present in those moments definitely played a huge role, so that I can in a healthy way seek approval. So yeah, I would definitely say from that, showing up, being consistent and being present. And also maybe in sometimes, when there is a good thing that is happening, hearing those words like "good job, son," or even, "I appreciate you" or "I love you." Those are different things that have definitely contributed to a successful, healthy, approval based relationship. Yeah.
That's so good because it's those small things. You know, the Bible says the little foxes that spoil the vine, just those small things. I love you, words of affirmation, being there, which seem not so significant, but actually are. What do you think on the flip side a father expects from his son?
Yeah, yeah. Well, from my perspective, growing up, my dad is, awesome man of God, but at the same time, there's high expectations.
Sure.
From even when I was a child, I would definitely say that or even not necessarily has it been said, but it was more so of like an unsaid kind of thing, that there's a legacy that you kind of have to uphold. And there is pressure there sometimes, but I definitely do um, feel that, there's a level of expectation that, from your upbringing, you've seen this, you've been here, you've seen me do this, and I want to see where you're going to go with that to that next level with what you've seen and what I've given you as your father to now you being my son.
Wow, that's powerful because that helps to drive.
I would add to that as well that in expectation, I've always told my son that I want you to be better. I want you to be what I couldn't have been, what I never become. But even though in his eyes, I may be that. You get what I'm saying? But I always wanted him to know that if that is what you think it is, I want you to go beyond that.
Wow.
Because my expectation of you is to outdo anything that I've ever done on a whole nother level and then some. And I think people may call it, in some senses, there's some homes that doesn't have that guidance. And I think this is where the church, not just from the pastor, but men, the leaders within the church, have to step into that role. Because you and I know there are a lot of homes that the mother has had to play the roles of mother and father.
Yeah.
And the only time the church, the children get any type of male structured leadership
When they come
is
church.
when they come to church. And my son would tell you, when he was younger, and we went to youth camp. It's usually a week away, and our room, our suite on the campground is where everybody hangs or everybody comes to, and we've always tried to be that example. And to now, a lot of these people, they're adults, making great contribution to society, and we're still connected because the framework, and they are now pouring into his life, because somebody like myself took the time to pour into them.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Because this, on this table now, is a privileged situation, because most, particularly in ethnic minority families, father and son doesn't always happen. It's a
Right.
minority. So this is actually powerful. What do you think some of the unrealistic expectations a father can have for a son or vice versa?
Um, I think some unrealistic expectations would maybe stem from, um, in terms of damage, I would definitely say it maybe would stem from, the foundation of what the relationship actually is. I do believe that, uh, you know, while there is a precedent to what I should be, and my dad can correct me if I'm not meeting those goals, if there's no solid foundation, then I would take that as an offense, meaning that, or probably because maybe he's not providing me with solutions. There's just criticism, 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 and no solutions. So I think if there's solid foundation there, then, damage can be done, but I don't believe that it can break. So if there's a solid foundation, it's definitely stemming from the point of view that if it's solid, pieces can be taken out of it. You can take the jabs, you can take all the criticism, but it can't break me because I know my father is going to give me the tools to fix those problems that I have, so I can at some point reach those goals and the expectation that is there. But then if there's not that part where I'm receiving those tools, then maybe that damage can really have a lasting effect, which can honestly probably even break the relationship.
Wow, that's powerful. That's powerful. Did you want to add on that?
Well, unrealistic expectation is applying pressure and I think this is what he's saying, applying pressure in areas that you have not equipped them
Sure.
to walk into.
Sure.
I remember there was a family years ago that the father told his kids what they're going to become. And he applied pressure on their minds from they were kids. And I'm not sure if any of them to this day
what he wanted
became what he wanted them to become. I think one went away, had a child while in college. The other
too
one,
much pressure.
Too much pressure. And one of the things that I think I knew how they pressured my family, pressured me in becoming certain things. And sometimes it's the things that's said, even in passing, but I knew what that did to my mind. So I and I hope I did. I never wanted to create an environment for him that I have certain expectation. You don't have to be a lawyer. Okay.
I was going to say that's really good what you're saying, because I know you must have got, you're going to be a preacher.
Yeah.
Because that's what my son has said.
Yeah.
Oh, the next preacher, the next pastor, and that's pressure because you're sort of boxing you into an area that that may not be where,
I never told him he's going to be a preacher, but then when I saw the call of God on his life, it is my responsibility to make him aware.
Sure.
To let him know there is a calling on your life. Now it's up to him to determine what he does with that calling. You get what I'm saying? Now, he knows he's not ready to walk into certain areas, but when it's the appropriate time for him, I believe he's going to do it because he must live up to his calling.
Sure.
But I understand what you're saying, that the pressure.
Yeah, coming from the outside,
based on the force, right? See,
yeah.
And that's the thing with the pressure. The pressure now in your house, like with your son, you're managing that pressure from the inside. You hear what I'm saying? So he's growing up. He's hearing the noise on the outside, but on the inside, you're telling him, it's people. Just I want you to
be who you are.
Do your
own pace.
At your own pace.
One thing I definitely would say that I really appreciate from the relationship with my dad in terms of church per se, or being in church, is that I was never pressured to be a church boy, you know.
Right.
My dad was very, or is very, intentional about, you know, if you're gonna have a relationship with Christ, let it be your own kind of relationship, and not necessarily anything that was kind of forced upon you. And growing up in a kind of organization that, you know, I grew up with my dad, you know, starting off, I was a lot of people that was around my age, they were getting Holy Ghost at like 5, 4, 3 years old.
You had to, right?
Yeah, it was almost as if like,
Yeah.
you know, if you don't have that,
Something's wrong with you.
something's
Oh
wrong
my
with you.
God. Have you spoken tongues yet?
I-
That's what they would say.
Yeah, no, yeah. So like there was definitely a lot of pressure there in terms of expectation, but
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for my household.
Wow.
For my parents, of making sure that they balanced that out for me. Listen, there's a real world perspective of what really happens, and I expect you to make mistakes and stuff across the road, you know, but I want that relationship to be organic and not necessarily anything that I kind of forced onto you.
Yeah.
More so that you receive God revealing himself unto you individually without me having to step in at all. But now once you receive that impartation for who God is for your own life, now it can guide you in the right places because you've seen it for your own self. Yeah.
Wow.
So I appreciate
That's
definitely,
really
yeah.
good. That's really good. And I know you're proud of your son.
Oh man, I'm proud. I'm so proud. I don't even know what to say. I really am. You know, I think this was yesterday, Tuesday, but you know, I looked at my son and I said, God, I thank you that I'm growing up with him. Yeah, I'm 55. He's about to be 25, and I'm grateful that our relationship is not authority based.
That's what I'm going to get into.
I'm not going to push you.
No, say it. No, because you're on the runway, so take it off.
It's not authority based.
Right.
He really is my friend. I mean,
that's what I was going to say. That's brilliant.
My son he check me sometimes.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, tell it all.
Listen, you know, he calls me out.
Right. That's good.
And I think I've learned to respect that and honor it. You know, don't think it's a
regular occurrence. As and when.
You know.
Right.
But I've learned to respect and honor it because God has placed him in my life to keep me grounded and connected to the next generation. So if we shut them out,
how's the connection going to come?
How are we going to connect to lead? How are we going to connect to correct?
Wow.
Yeah. Because I can't help somebody when I don't try to understand what they're going through.
Because of a lack of information.
Because of a lack of information. And there are times when he said, but Dad, you know, you have to think that this person so-and-so, so-and-so, because we get locked up in our own world. And, you know, I don't tell him he's right at the moment, but, you know.
But in your mind.
But I accept what he's saying. And then later on I say, you know, you're right. It's, you know.
And you know what it is as well? It's the way Tyler approaches things. You can receive it.
Yeah.
He's, you know, wise in the approach.
Right.
And I think that's the key. Oftentimes it's the
wise in the approach.
Yeah.
That is significant.
Yeah.
That's significant.
So oftentimes it's not even the what, it's not what you're saying, it's the way you're saying it. And if you say it in the sort of manner that, you know, I know you speak in, you can receive it a lot more.
But what causes that, I think, is respect. Because there are preachers I know who have children, but their children fear them more than they fear God.
Wow.
And because of that, there is a breakdown, because now I'm only going to respond to you based on what I know you want to hear,
not what God is saying,
so that I can keep the peace. But when they get to an age of maturity within themselves, where the parents can't control them any longer, they're not in church now. And these are people who I grew up with. But they were only there because they was remanded to be there
By the parents.
by the parents. But now that I'm making my own decision, and I never wanted that for my son.
That's awesome.
I wanted him to want to be in church. I wanted him to understand church is not just a ritual. It's a lifestyle.
Right.
We don't forsake the assembling of ourselves together, no matter what we're going through. I already tell them, when you're going through stuff, that's when you really need to go to church.
It's the time you ever been, yeah.
Because you need to be in the presence where iron can sharpen iron.
That's awesome. How does it feel to hear how proud Dad is of
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's a great feeling.
you? Yeah. That's
and
great affirmation.
Yes, no, definitely, 100%. And I think, one person that's connected with our family consistently, honestly, said something that has stuck with me for like the past couple of years. Every single time I think about it, it's Bishop Jones always says that the younger generation gives him shelf life.
Sure.
And allows them to extend his knowledge past generations that he's accustomed to. And I take that very seriously, especially with my dad, because I want to try to modernize his way of thinking, so that people who are at my age can feel open to come to him and talk to him about things regularly. And I feel like, in ministry, sometimes that's just like, if you want to draw in these kind of people, then you have to be approachable. And so taking all those things into consideration, I really appreciate that line of openness, so that he can hear me out, I can hear him out, and we can have effective dialogue without doing any damage to our actual relationship.
That is fantastic. So what works for you better as a son is not that authority figure of being, knock before you come in and there's airs and graces. But what works for you is just cordiality and having that down-to-earth relationship.
There's definitely authority there. Like, I know that I can't say certain things.
Sure,
and I know that there's a line. There's a line that I never cross.
Sure.
Because my main thing is to be respectable, but then also just be nice, because nobody likes a negative person, So my goal is to be nice in what I bring to the table, but then at the same time, be respectable, but then also remain conscious of what my goal is. If I'm saying, yo, Dad, I want to do this. I'm sorry if I said yo, but I'm saying, Dad, if I want to do this.
Say yo.
Exactly.
I'm saying, Dad,
act like you don't say it at home. Yo, Dad.
I mean, if Dad, if I want to do this, or if we should do that, I say it in a tone or in a perspective that he's able to receive it, and that I fall in line with the level of respect that's there for our relationship.
That's huge.
People look at my my program online and they go, man, you got it's amazing, it's sharp.
Yeah.
This and I love your presentation, and I go, well, talk to my boss, because I literally consider him my boss. Why? Because I listen to him.
Sure.
I listen to what he says. Now, as he said, the authority figure, the respect for authority is there, but it's not necessarily because of control or manipulation. It's because of how he was trained. We go back to the scripture: train up a child in the way he should grow, and when he's old, he won't depart from it. I have no question in my mind that he would abuse any type of relationship because of how he was raised. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When you have relationships that wasn't built on any foundation, the foundation of who he is honorable, respectful, love. Honorable, he honors people. He honors relationships. That's what he was taught. Respect others, respect yourself, and people will respect you. Love everybody. you're not better than anybody, and nobody's better than you.
Right.
And if you love people, if you love God, you're going to be able to love people easily. And these are the principles by which he was raised on.
Yeah.
So now in his adult life, I can close my eyes and not worry.
Because those principles
are now being released out of his manhood, out of his adult life, because of how he was trained as a child.
That's powerful. And it's such, and it does take a certain level of skill set and character to be friends, but also have that, the mark where, okay, we're friendly. Because some fathers actually say, no, I'm so afraid of disrespect, I'm going to have you at a distance.
Yeah.
And what they're scared of is being disrespected. They can't handle that.
That's true.
And so rather than being, molded, they do it from a distance. I actually prefer being closer and saying, look, this was wrong, that was wrong. But I don't, and I think that takes a certain level of security and in knowing who you are as a father. I'm the father. Even if you're disrespectful, it will not change my role. And then you understand, this is my father, there's a line, and I have to know how to address. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't change it. You can't switch your father out. Your father's your father. My son is my son. I can't change that fact. So I don't have to be intimidated by anything. You can say what you want, dude. I'm still your dad.
Do you have personal father and son time where you go out, do things together?
Yeah, we do. We do.
Yeah. We do. But I think, with also, the busyness of the life sometimes.
Sure.
Also, my dad, travels a lot, preaches a lot. I have a business, so I end up doing a lot of things where I have to go on the road and work or whatever the case may be. But the funny thing is, even with that being a thing, it doesn't affect, for an example, there was one time I was working at a conference, and me and my best friend, David, he's real close to my dad as well. We were on the way back arguing, like, man, I don't even know if we can do this anymore. My dad, we were able to call him on the phone and say, yo, listen, guys, this is bigger than just the two of you, and you guys have to fix this. So he stood on the phone with us, talked it out, and we were able to, obviously fix the problem. But I'm definitely, even with us being away, it's like almost as if like the bond just never removes itself. I have no problem coming to him to say whatever the case may be, but it almost feels like, he's always there.
Sure.
So whichever way it goes, and even if a phone call away, I said, Dad, we're in Jersey, we need you for this. He's able to come and be present. So I sometimes, we don't necessarily have like, a bonding time schedule, but
you have a fluid relationship.
Sometimes it doesn't even feel like the bonding time is even needed.
Sure.
Because of how much time we just spend in the house together.
Get away from each other.
Yeah. No, honestly. Yeah.
I need some space.
Yeah.
That's absolutely excellent. And that's great. I really, just celebrate what you guys have and how important it is. Now, Apostle, you didn't have that growing up.
No.
So where did you get the skill set from? Because usually fathers are not as effective because of the cycle. Didn't have a father, don't know what a father means, don't know what to do. And so we carry on that same cycle. How did you break that?
It's what I always wanted. And because I always wanted that, I made a decision that if I ever had a kid, I would ensure that I'm always in his life. My child will never grow and not know who his dad is.
Hmm.
And my when my wife was pregnant, I wanted a daughter.
Hmm.
Yeah, because his cousin, my niece, she's old, born the same date. They share the same birthday, but she's older than he is.
Okay.
And oh man, I was God's gift to creation.
Wow.
And I just fell in love with that
Intimacy.
emotionally, that emotional attachment.
Mm.
So I wanted a daughter. And even though we did the sonogram and we knew the sex that was coming, you know, I think he knew somehow that I wanted a daughter. and when he came out and the nurse, you know, before they cleaned him off and on the table, and she told me to come over and see my son. And with all that stuff on him, you know, he literally opened his eyes and gave the biggest smile.
Wow.
I mean, he looked at me like, nah, 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 nah. It's like,
Woo!
Gabba, you stuck now, brah. What you gonna do? But from that moment, he has always been with me. I got in trouble with my wife when he was just a little baby. When he was, you know, like it was probably about 2 weeks before he was, before after he came home from the hospital. I tried to put him in the back seat of my Porsche strap down the car seat.
Your wife would have it. She was like,
give me my baby, give it my baby. You know, but you know,
Yeah.
it's just the things that from day one in my spirit, I'm not even going to say my mind, in my spirit, I knew I had to do, because this is my son. He's mine.
Wow.
God gave me this responsibility to raise a man. And I'm grateful.
It's been an awesome journey.
Yes.
So, one day you'll be a father.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts and your concepts in this generation? What's some of the things that you're in your 20s, that, you know, your generation and younger and, you know, a little older struggle with? Because do you see it as the same as, say, the other generations in terms of marriage and coming together? How do you see it? What's your view?
In terms of the concept of marriage, I do believe that for this generation, I feel like it's a little bit more of, some people may look at it as unrealistic. But I think that relies heavily on what the support is behind that. You know? So if there's nobody at home, or you never really saw a 2-parent household with 2 parents who actually genuinely love each other, you might not think that's something realistic for you. But from what I've seen growing up, you know, I think that marriage is a realistic thing, but because of that increasing rate of parents not being together when their child is being brought up, that it becomes difficult to find a partner that you would foresee that future with. So I think because of that there's a lot of pushback, skepticism. People are nervous to jump into those situations because simply they just don't want to pick the wrong person.
But it seems to be almost like the toss of a coin. And I'm so sorry to use that analogy, but it's almost 50% divorce rate almost. So it's almost like heads or tails. That's daunting.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, you know, if something feels right the first time, they just jump to it without sometimes not even necessarily doing all the homework.
So emotions before you.
Exactly. You know, if you see signs, you ignore the signs, but because this person makes you feel a way, then, you know, I'm going to jump into it. But sometimes you may have to actually see the signs, because that cancer can start off small, but at some point that can grow and become deadly in the future. So I think that's one of the bigger things to acknowledge when it comes to that. And because of those situations, some people just jump into it, and some people are a little bit more cautious before they jump into it.
Wow.
I want to ask a question. And this is to Tyler, because I believe that as examples and as leaders, it is important that we share to be prepared to be better fathers. And I'm proud of the man you've become. But from your experience, from you having lived, what advice would you give to someone who's trying to reconnect
with their father?
An absent father, to be, or a father who you may know that's trying to reconnect with his family. From your experience, what would you tell that person?
Well, I would definitely say be open to the opportunity. Sometimes a lot of feeling and emotion that might be there from the years of maybe somebody being absent or not being there can drive somebody to say, listen, I don't even want to talk to this person. You weren't there before, you were never there, and you didn't make an effort until now. I just, I have no inclination to want to do that. But you never know what that may really unlock from you. Sometimes you may have some hidden feelings that you never really take control or take care of. And, answering questions or questions that you may have in your life, you may not even know what that could really unlock for you. So I would definitely say be open to the possibility, because you don't know what that can end like. And also think wider than just yourself.
That's very powerful.
Wow.
If you have a child, or you're preparing to have a child and you say, no, I don't want this person back into my life, now you're negating that other person from having a grandfather probably. And so I definitely would say, think bigger than just you, because there's more that has to play in that scenario.
That is so powerful, because I didn't have a relationship with my father, and my uncle passed maybe 2-3 years ago, and I met my father at the funeral, and we reconnected.
Mm-hmm.
And he then, came into the life of my kids, and I felt it was important to bridge that gap and to mend that broken link. And also to defeat the generational curse, because his father also neglected him. And so we're going on and on and on. And so instead of looking at it like, oh no, because, we wasn't, you didn't have a relationship in the past, you've got to be bigger than that.
Yeah.
And you see him being better to your kids.
Right.
You didn't even know he had, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this, and Pastor Philip, it's amazing. Thank you for this, and changing lives. This is amazing. But let me ask you, what advice would Philip today, 2025, all your experiences, all of your challenges, all your setbacks, all your failures and your wins, what advice would Philip give to Philip back then so he can get to here?
I think the advice I would give to myself would be concentrate even more on your home, and put, because as preachers we aspire, and as people we aspire the business, the ministry, the church. Actually putting as more effort and emphasis on the home. Not that I didn't, but I feel that I could have put more in. I think that's the most valuable thing when all is said and done. So that's the advice I would give, to the Philip.
The younger Philip.
Yeah. What advice would you give?
If I could go back to a younger Carl, one, I'd tell him, listen more.
Mm.
Many of the pitfalls that I have gone through in my life is because I didn't listen.
Yeah.
I saw, because when you're fighting to come up out of something, and you have a goal in your mind, a tunnel vision, you're not really listening to advice. you're only going after the prize. And in going after the prize, you don't see the snakes in the tunnel on the way. You don't see the bear. You don't see the lions. You don't see the different things that are set up to derail you, to hold you back, to pull you back. If I listened more, there's some things I would have avoided. There's some mistakes that I would not have made.
Right.
And we can say, well, those mistakes have made you who you are. But remember, I'm going back to speak to the younger Carl with the experience of those mistakes to correct him, to help him not. You don't have to do it. I already did it, son. It's already done. And then like you said, I would concentrate on home a lot more.
Yeah.
It would be a lot more beneficial.
Yeah, I agree.
And
that's awesome. And going back to, I don't know, about 10 years ago, what would you change if you could?
Going back to then, I would definitely say, relationship wise, just being a little bit more considerate of the wider view of what it is. Sometimes, traveling a lot, sometimes things happen in ports of traveling that, you expecting dad to be there tomorrow, and dad's not able to come in tomorrow because there's a snowstorm, that like the amount of times that it may have hurt me, that it probably hurt him 10 times more.
Sure.
Tomorrow I might get over it, but he's probably dealing when he comes back and he sees a sad son, and he's dealing with it 10 times worse. I would definitely say be a little more considerate and acknowledging that and be like, hey, Dad, look, I really appreciate that you made an effort there, and trying. And that's what I would say, definitely.
That's awesome. Can I say this? We've got an issue with fatherlessness, which we, in the last episode and now we're saying is predominantly a byproduct of broken relationship. And we're also saying that we've almost got a 50% divorce rate. Do we think that for a younger man like Tyler, the most important decision, obviously connected to God, which is the most important decision, but the next most important decision is a potential spouse?
Yeah, I would agree. And I think because he's at that age where he's looking or he's viewing prospects, and
how do you know? He told you?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. But whereas I may have an image of who I want him to be with, but now I have to respect
his
image of who he wants or what he wants. The image may not look nothing like me nor his mother.
Wow.
But I have to honor that, knowing that what's instilled in him is still not going to depart from him.
Yeah.
But it's just going to be reformatted in a different image. And with the help of God, we talk, he share what he wants to share. I have to give him honest opinion, not biased opinion because I want an image.
I think it's the same thing with me as well. My son, he's got his image and it's his own, but it's good because again, that's him being, who he
But you have a son and daughter.
As
and
well.
your daughter is older.
Their own image, yeah.
So you got problems. I ain't got that problem. Because you see, it's and the thing is, it's more difficult for you with a daughter.
More difficult. The son is easier because you're more like, okay, But the
it's
other way
really
around,
it's really my wife's problem with him.
Yeah, because you want to be a protector, and you want to make sure.
But with your daughter, that has to be something else because you looking at the dudes because you remember how you were.
Well, not me, but others.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Well, we remember how we were. Let's say that we remember how we were,
Yeah.
and with the and this is in our position as pastors and leaders.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about fatherhood, but it's not just about sons and dads.
It's about
about
daughters and dads as well.
Yeah.
Because these stats also relate to daughters.
Yeah.
Hugely, like teenage pregnancies, getting the wrong person, they're all there.
Yeah.
You know, so it's very, very important.
Yeah.
You know, very, very important. And we see a court case taking place now where the female was 21 or 20 when she got into that relationship, and it was horrific from all accounts.
Yeah.
What I want to know is, where were the parents there? Or maybe she didn't listen, because sometimes there are
Parents
kids,
are there, but the kids aren't listening.
they're not listening.
And
They're not listening.
and let me say this to every parent: be grateful for your child who listens.
Wow.
Be
Wow.
grateful. Relax. You know, man down.
It's so true.
Some parents need to man down so their kids can man up.
That's so true.
We don't give them the room to man up.
Yeah.
We're on top of them.
I
24/7.
was on a phone call today, and there was an issue. So I was on the phone. There's a group call with my son and wife, and I was ranting and raving and all of that, but he was so calm. And he just brought the temperature down, so I had to calm down.
Yeah, no choice.
And son, if you're watching, thank you, man, because he did that, and it just brought and it was so good, and he got his point across and all of that. But the way he did it was so tactful, where, you know, in some ways he's more
Shut both of y'all
tactful.
up.
Why is it in me?
It's the same thing with him.
Yeah.
You know, that sometimes I want to, and I really want to go at it, and he disarms me,
Yeah.
and I'm like, you know, walking away mad because I can't blow off what I want to blow off.
Yeah.
I think I think a lot of people think that a lot of the younger generation sometimes just don't know what they're talking about sometimes. I think that a lot of younger kids, even as young as like 15, 16, they may be on their phone, on TikTok or Instagram, consistently watching things, but they pay attention to everything.
Yeah.
And they listen and they learn from those experiences, so much to the point where, like, now you see millionaires at 15, 16 years old because they saw where their parents might have went wrong in certain areas. So I definitely think that a lot of the younger kids, you know, while yes, some of them may be, because the truth of the matter is, you know, some children tend to be, if they have a strict household, sometimes they want to see what they can kind of really get out of it. You know, my mom doesn't let me do this, so you know what, you know, they keep on, I'm gonna just find a way to do what I want to do at the end of the day. That is very real. But sometimes there are also other instances where the child just knows better, you know, that they learn from those instances, and that they're not necessarily just being quiet or even, you know, questioning parents sometimes, but they actually have a perspective of something to say that might add value to the family.
I agree.
So I think, you know.
And in that, I would say that that's where parents have to understand that sometimes your role is just to be a manager. You didn't go to college and learn to be computer
And we
science.
weren't in the AI generation.
You weren't in the AI generation.
Those generations, yeah.
So whereas our participation, okay, my son started in the media stuff, you know, before college, right? The pandemic came, and when he was younger, he saw I was into it. I didn't know what to do, but I knew what I wanted to see. So what I would do is when we would go to church in Florida, and he would come down, a little kid, he had to stand on something to stand behind the camera, you know, and he did that. But I didn't know he was fascinating with it.
Wow.
And when we had COVID and we were shut down, it was him who came to me and said, "Dad, we got to do something."
Wow.
Yeah. And
wow.
And I said, "Okay, whatever you're going to do," I gave him the authority. Whatever you're going to do, I'm with it. Because I trusted his decision. I didn't know what he was going to do. Can I be honest? I didn't know what he was going to do at all.
Right.
But he came up with something that made sense.
I think one thing that I've learned, from my dad, but then also with moving with him with ministry wise, is a spirit of excellence. From a very young age, everything was meant to do, and you follow what the things are supposed to be. Like
Sure.
for instance, both prior to my dad even doing ministry at his own church, his spiritual father, Bishop Joseph Daniel Williams, had very super exquisite to the T services. We had Art of the Apothecary. We had every single year. We had installation ordinations, and you kind of had to
9 on 9.
Yeah. So I've seen that from a very young age. So then now converting that over to anything that I do, I feel do in life, if we feel like we're not putting our best foot forward on it, honestly don't even bother with it. So I think, once the opportunity when COVID came, we looked at everything from a wider perspective. We said, hey, look, this worked for this time. We started off using iPhones. We said, okay, look, maybe now we should get a camera. But everything that was done in the bits and pieces definitely had the standard of excellence put onto it.
That's
so
awesome.
that going forward, we build a level of expectation from ourselves. Honestly, from anything that we do, from media wise and also family wise, but to the point where we feel like we might have maxed out, we break it every single time to start over again. And I definitely think that level of expectation stems from the lineage of excellence from fatherhood that we have all the way back from, honestly, the spiritual father as well.
Sure.
Not just my dad being my physical father and spiritual father, but his spiritual father imparting into him that level of excellence, which honestly drops down to even now.
Awesome. Listen, this has been an exceptional podcast. And I say this because Mother's Day is very celebrated. All the restaurants are filled, and Father's Day is usually a step down. But fathers are just as important. And we've learned that today. Thank you so much, Apostle Carl Warp and Tyler Warp. This has been great. We've learned so much. I want to encourage everyone who's watching. Every first Sunday of the month is a men's gathering where men gather after the service, which starts about 1 p.m., between 1 p.m. and 1:30 p.m. in the afternoon. So I want you to join us there, and also join for Father's Day service. That is on the 15th of June at 10:30 a.m. Bless every one of you. We will see you next week. Stay blessed and favored of God. And to everyone, we say, bless the Lord.
It is our desire to keep you posted on what's happening here at Changing Lives Christian Center. So please pull out your smart devices so you can take notes and save dates.
Calling all golden girls and guys. The Bible says in Isaiah 46:4, even to your golden age, I am he. Even when you turn gray, I will carry you. God is not done with you, and you are not alone. So come and join with our group to form friendships and fellowship as we socialize together. Ages 65 and up. Sign up at the info desk in the lobby.
Hi, everyone. Change Your Life podcast continues every Wednesday at 8 p.m. on YouTube and also on Facebook. You can catch those broadcasts. The month of May has been extraordinary as the mothers have shared with us. We're going to go into the fathers in June, and I'm calling everyone to come and watch as we air those programs. And we want to strengthen and encourage men in their mental health, physical health, in their spirituality, in their relationships, and in various areas of their lives. So I would like you to tune in every Wednesday at 8 o'clock. And I'm saying your life will be changed. God bless you, and we'll see you there.
Sunday, June 15th, join Pastors Paul and Yasmin Mitchell and the entire CLCC church family for Father's Day. Invite your family and friends as we praise God for and honor our fathers at our Father's Day celebration service at 10:30 a.m.
Faith over fear, that's the code I live by.
These days, the world makes it seem crazy to believe in something you can't see. But just imagine how wild these people must have looked until God showed up.
The wise men followed the star and found the Savior of the world.
Everyone laughed at Noah until it rained. That ark, though, it became a place of safety and salvation.
David faced a giant with just a sling, and he won.
Caleb didn't just see the promised land, he walked into it.
Sarah was told she was too old to have kids, yet she gave birth to Isaac, the promised son.
Esther stood in faith and saved an entire nation.
The walls of Jericho, they literally crumbled with a shout.
Moses raised a stick and the Red Sea split in two. Yeah, that happened.
The blind man, yeah, he walked away seeing.
Peter, he walked on water, literally.
And Mary, she gave birth to Jesus, the one who died for us, rose for us, and offers redemption to you, me, and all of humanity.
So let's stop playing small. It's time to rise up, take our place, and start believing in God. Faith over fear.
Join us June 29th here at CLCC for a powerful Youth Sunday that you won't forget. Let us declare faith over fear together.
Faith over fear, that's my testimony.
A church family is like all other families. They need to spend time together. And that's what Changing Lives Christian Center will be doing on Friday, August 1st, 2025 at Sight and Sound Theaters in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Come and experience the theatrical story of Noah, a faithful man who God calls righteous and obedient. God calls Noah to build an ark because he has plans to destroy the earth because of the horrific sin and violence that covered the earth. God was just straight out tired and through with man. He even repented that he had even made man in the first place. But God, against all odds, has a reset in mind. His reset starts with Noah and his family to build an ark. The ark would provide protection and provisions for safety, while the entire earth is destroyed by a flood that would take out all of humankind and all living creatures on the earth, except for Noah, his family, and pairs of animals of every kind. This live play is all about being obedient. Noah was obedient and Noah was righteous. And with God's reset through Jesus Christ, when we believe, we are righteous. The question is, can we be obedient, as we are all on covenant assignment for God? So while life has its challenges, God still has a mission that may seem impossible for you to complete. But that mission is possible if, like Noah, we are obedient. So if you enjoy Broadway, well, Sight and Sound has so much more to offer. It brings the Bible to life. Join Pastors Paul and Yasmin Mitchell and your church family for an experience that is sure to feed your soul. Not only will your soul be fed, but the food in PA is amazing. And guess what? The icing on the cake is that you will be spending time with your church family. Need more information? Please visit CLCC's info desk right after service and reserve your seat today with Minister Mabel Ishmael. Seats are limited. Again, you don't want to miss this play, and you don't want to miss spending time with your church family. God bless you, and we'll see you there.
CLCC and New York City Council member Chris Banks presents Community Outreach, hosted by CLCC's healthcare team, Saturday, August 16th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's a one-day community health fair with food, fun, free health screenings, CPR training, blood pressure testing, giveaways, back-to-school supplies, face painting, and much more. Medical professionals on site for Q&As, activities for all ages. This will be a free event, so save the date. Visit the info desk for more details.
Do you need prayer? It doesn't matter for what. CLCC is here to stand in prayer with you and for you. Let's take it to the Lord, for He cares about all of the needs you have. God has commanded us to always pray and not faint. His word declares that when we pray, believing, that He will always answer. So join CLCC's prayer leaders Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. That's right, 30 minutes for prayer and encouragement to start your day. We look forward to you calling into our conference prayer line, 646-769-9900. Access code 82551. Remember, come and dial believing. The Master awaits your prayer request.
Join CLCC in remembrance of current world events.